Hello everybody, this is John Attridge, and this recording is going to be part of the next Quantum Business Show brought globally on the 24th of June. With me today I have a very interesting entrepreneur from Australia who I've known for better part of 40 years. That's making me sound quite old, and possibly him too, but he just doesn't look that old. A business partner of mine for many, many years, and someone who's got an interesting tale to tell and some perhaps tips for small businesses out there to take away. So welcome to the show, David Johnstone.
Thanks, John. Great to be here, and great to be able to do this virtually.
Absolutely. It's one of the joys of Zoom and COVID, one of the good things that's come out of it. So yes. David, we met a long time ago, and I'm thinking it's probably about 1980 or thereabouts, which I know you were only about 3 at the time by the look of you. But sport's always been part of your life and as well as mine, and that's how we met. So I just want to share some little bits about that.
Yeah, sure. John, if I recall, I met you, I was probably around 21, 22. I think I moved up to Goulburn in New South Wales, and you were, I think, captain coach of the Goulburn Hawks. And I came along. I was a left footer from Melbourne, Victoria, and so I played a lot of footy, footy all my life, and so joined the Goulburn Hawks and spent 2 or 3 years, or 2 years, enjoying playing footy with you and all the other guys from Goulburn.
And isn't it interesting, David? So all those years later, we had a very great team, and it was a little bit of a unique situation, but we developed some lifelong friends and some very interesting people like Barry Cusack, who was the president of the Australian Minerals Council, and Steve Williams, it's gone on to become a CEO of a massive mining company in Canada. There's some interesting people from that time.
Yeah, there was a melting pot of people from kind of all around Australia that came to Goulburn, and a lot of them came because of the mine in Goulburn. So you got a lot of different sort of people there. Certainly, you and I weren't there for that reason, but there's been some very successful people come out of that Goulburn Hawks footy team.
Yeah. So you've been a keen sportsman on and off, and one of the things that we talk about is connections and networking and what have you. So just share with anybody out there, if they're involved in sport, is that a good strategy for developing ongoing connections and relationships in not only in personal life but in business?
Yeah, I think so. Certainly in personal life it is, because you're kind of blood brothers, bashing away on the footy field, and then having a few beers afterwards and talking about family and friends and business, what have you. But certainly from a networking point of view, I've found it always throughout all the businesses that I've been involved with. We have sponsored local grassroots football or softball or any sort of sporting teams. And I've been fortunate enough to be CEO of a few companies that we're actually sponsoring larger national teams, and the networking that you get from that is phenomenal. And the business people that you do meet, whether it's grassroots sport or it's national and international teams, so it's really a good way of networking. Absolutely.
And David, so how, a lot of people sponsor things and then sit back and put their hands behind their head and wonder why it didn't work. Have you got any strategies or tips to help anybody out there that was considering sponsoring, whether it's on a local level or a national level, on how to get better value from your sponsorship, dollar or pound or baht or wherever?
Well, it's certainly going to as many of the functions that those the sporting club that you're sponsoring you can go to. The more you can go to, the better, because the more people you're going to meet. And you've got to do. In the larger companies, we always said that for the $1 of sponsorship that we spend, we would spend another $2 on marketing our business throughout their network. So the key to that is making sure that you put a certain amount of money aside for sponsorship, but then you put a certain amount of money aside for marketing your business within the network or within that sporting club.
Yeah, that's sound advice. So, David, in your early business days, I know I met you when you were wool scouring at the time, if I remember, in a family business before we went on and formed a car rental business and then Trade Exchange together. But just go through what some of the experience and perhaps frustration of working in a very, very small business or a family business. Can you just share some thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, I moved to Goulburn to open up a wool store for my parents, one of their family businesses, and so I had to, the challenges there were that they said, right, just go up and open up a wool store up there. We've got some clients up there. So the biggest, well, I had to find a store. I had to transport forklifts and etc. up there to open it up, find staff to staff it, and then go out and recruit clients to bring their wool to our wool store for sale, right, for preparation of sale. And in that, having to do everything is probably the most challenging thing, I think, in a small business, because you just get stuck in doing that but not working on your business. So from my perspective, and that's always the challenging piece, is getting the opportunity and the time to work on your business rather than in your business. I know everyone says that, but that's the biggest challenge, I think.
So what would you say is the easiest way? It's easier said than done. What's one thing, if you had to pick it out, that you can do to help work on your business rather than in it, depending, irrespective of what stage it's at?
I really think, and depending on the size of your business, but let's move to a business that might employ 5 to 10 employees, have 5 or 10 employees, and you're stuck in that business just working the whole time. Is that I found that the earlier that businesses seek outside advice, the better. So getting a mentor or someone on an advisory board capacity to come in and just look at your business, assist you with systems and processes and some governance and identifying the risks in your business, making sure your financials are up to date, you're doing some budgeting and forecasting. So it's actually someone looking over your shoulder every month saying, well, have you done this? Have you done that? In a nice way. Now that's disruptive to you and the way that you run your business, but it's probably the best tip I can give any business person, is to make sure you get that outside help to structure your business and keep you in check every month that you're doing the things that you should be doing, rather than saying, oh, I'll leave that till next month, and then next month it never happens.
Yeah, a little bit like coaching a sporting team.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, someone who keeps you accountable. To what you said you were going to do last month, that you actually do it.
Yeah. Good advice. So, David, you've got a very impressive CV. You've been chairman of many companies, NED roles, trustee. I think you've got about 7 going at the moment. Tell me about some of the roles there, particularly with Kepper Financial Services and the Sports Club HQ. What do you do there in the various 3 roles?
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, my background has been, been entrepreneur, built businesses with you, John, then moved on to being CEO of quite large national and international companies. And then from that progressed into non-executive director roles and chairman's roles, basically from being a CEO and reporting into boards to then going, okay, well, that's probably my next career move, is into being on a board. What I find in those roles, and look, it doesn't matter what business you're in, and I'm in quite a diverse sectors and range of businesses. It's all about, the businesses are the same. They have the same issues. They have people issues. They have financial issues. They have growth issues, whether that's they're growing too quickly or they're not growing enough. They've got the same types of risks in the businesses. And in those sort of roles, it's around making sure you've got the right corporate governance, the right structures for the businesses to operate, and making sure that the business and those working in the business are accountable to their budgets, their forecasts, their business plans, and assisting them in a way that is helping them steer the ship, not being in there doing it day to day. So those the three, well, the couple of companies you mentioned. One's Keeper Financial Services. We've just sold that business, so I've moved out as chair of that business. But again, if you're thinking about selling a business, and I'm probably jumping around a little here, most people are growing their businesses and building their businesses, and they're creating value in their business. And at a point in time, they want to extract that value out of that business by selling the business. So the best way you can do that is to put all of those systems and processes, corporate governance, identifying risks, going back to your financials, developing those, budgeting, and etc., and having that advisory board, or if you're big enough, having a board to manage those things for you. And then you will be able to extract wealth out of the business. And that's what we were able to do with Keeper. We built that business up to be a viable business. It's based in New Zealand, that business, which is in the insurance, predominantly life insurance industry, but financial services industry. And we built it up to a point where someone could come along and go, wow, this is a great business. And when I come in to do the due diligence, you've got everything ticked. All the boxes are ticked. So it was a very easy acquisition and a very comfortable acquisition. And, we achieved a good price for the business.
I talk about, David, just on that, with starting with the end in mind. And if you do, well, first of all, do you agree with that philosophy? And does it help when you want to either grow, scale, refinance, or finally exit a business? You just share some thoughts on that.
Yeah. Yes, but I think it's your end in time. So when you start this business, what do you want to do with this business, and what's the end look like for you? May not be the end of the business, but what's the end look like for you? Are you prepared to be in this business for 5 years, or are you prepared to be in for 10, or do you want it to continue on and to list the business, or do you want it to remain in the family and continue through generations and generations? I think you've got to have that thought about what the end looks like for you, and be real about that. Don't think, right, okay, I want to build this $100 million business, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Well, perhaps you're not the person if you're starting off by yourself, to be the person that is running the business when it's 100 million. You might be the person that should build it from 1 million to 10 million, because you're a business builder, and then perhaps move out of the business and get the right people in who can take it to the next level. So I think you've got to be very clear on what your capabilities are and your experience, and what the end looks like for you.
Yep, good points. David, what's the difference as you see it between being a chair, being an NED, and being a trustee?
Well, they're three very different roles. So if you start with a chairman, obviously is the chairman of the board. So there's other NEDs generally there, and some executive directors, and potentially the CEO or the general manager maybe on the board. The role of chair is to make sure that, first of all, you've got the right people in place to run the company, the management of the company, and that they are being accountable to their budgets, their forecasts, etc., and that you bring the other non-executive directors along for the journey. So the non-executive directors are generally people who have been in business previously themselves, bring a certain skill set along, and so does the chair. And the chair manages the board as well, so that everyone gets an equal hearing, has an ability to put forward their thoughts on resolutions that you're discussing and voting on certain requirements. And the chairman also normally has a very strong relationship with the CEO and spends a reasonable amount of time on a weekly basis checking in with the CEO. So a bit of a sounding board for the CEO. So you would find most chair peoples or chairs would have run fairly large businesses in their past life to then move into a chair role. And then a trustee, like for example, I'm a trustee of an advisors fund, and again, that's a checks and balance, making sure that that the financials are done, that I'm because I'm trustee on behalf of other people who own the units in that trust. I've just got to make sure everything is done correctly and that there's no third-party influencers or advisors influencing what the trust is doing. So I'm independent. I've got to be very independent in that role.
What would you say, David, if there was any businesses out there that are looking to that next step and to perhaps get a chairman involved? What are the sort of things would you looking at? Someone that you know, someone's been recommended, someone you can get on with, someone that's complementary, someone that's supplementary. What do you think would be the couple of top things to look for in a good chairman?
Yeah. So if we're looking perhaps more at SMEs, if we looked at a board advisory role first of all, before we go to chair, is because chairs are generally elected by the shareholders, and so I'm talking more public companies there than private companies in some respects. But to start with, I don't think it should be someone you know, because that's someone too close to you. It should be someone you know could refer you into someone who could provide you provide you some guidance because they've experienced and been in business previously. So I think that's where you're best to go, when not someone you know necessarily, but use someone you know to find someone for you. They don't necessarily have to have industry experience that you're in, but they certainly have got to have business experience. It's probably helpful if they have some industry experience and if they have a network of people in that industry. And then you're looking for them to have financial acumen, business acumen, and done it before. I really feel that they're the kind of, and you've got to be able to get on with this person, but you don't need to be best friends. You know, it's generally a commercial relationship, and that's the way it should stand.
Yeah.
Now, if you move into a chairman's role, finding a chairman is just perhaps that other level up from that, where they have sat on other company boards. They've been a chairman of another board. They've sat on a listed company board previously, have some industry knowledge or have some key skills that are required on that board that the board doesn't have at present.
Yep. So, the same principles could be applied to a coach, for instance, for a very small business.
Yes. So you pay a coach to come in for a very small business. It's generally someone you don't know. They have tried and proven systems and processes that they can assist you with to put into your business. They come in and they do that checking every month. You know, they come in and say, well, we spoke about this last month. Where did you get to with this? Okay, well, let's check in next month on it. it's very, very similar if it's a business coach, not a personal coach. Yeah.
Yep. David, tell me a little bit about EnviroSuite. I'm not quite up with that, and I saw that you're the chair of that.
Yeah, that's been a long journey with that company, and we've gone through some different iterations, and that's a listed group on the Australian Stock Exchange. And I got involved when I think they were about 10 or 11 million market cap. I mean, we've been above 200 million market cap. We sit at, I don't know, somewhere 180 million currently. That's been a great journey. It's a global leader in environmental intelligence, and we've got it's a technology company with software, a software platform that we provide services, predictive services or software to the aviation, mining, industrial, wastewater and water sectors globally. So we have we're in 15 countries with 200 employees. And we allow industries like the mining industry to work within communities so that they can comply with their licenses by providing them software that tells them when they can blast, tell them when they can dig, when they can load trucks, etc. Yep. So, and it's predictive in its it does backmarking, instant and predictive technology for them. So it's a great company that's growing dramatically at the moment, which is great.
Environment's a pretty big topic. It's a fairly hot topic at the moment. What would you give as the number one tip for a small business? How can they be environmentally friendly?
Yeah, good. Catch a train to work. That's where you can start. It's just becoming paperless is another very easy one for small businesses. Yeah, look, it's just being a good citizen and being aware of your surroundings, your environmental surroundings. So, making sure your waste is separated and put into, if you're a restaurant or so forth, so just doing those little things as a small business is if we all did that, the world would be a better place, wouldn't it, environmentally?
Yep. Yeah, we're promoting carbon offsets, so that allows companies to
have carbon zero. That's probably another area you can do.
Yep. David, getting away from absolute business right for the second, yeah, you've had a long and distinguished career in many fields. You must have run into some interesting people without sort of giving away family secrets or whatever. Who are the couple of interesting people that you've run across, and what made them interesting?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I've probably got two that spring to mind that people may be aware of who they are. I was fortunate enough many years ago to speak at a luncheon in Adelaide in South Australia, and the speaker before me was the ex-Prime Minister John Howard, who was speaking on small business actually, and they were launching their small business policy. And the business that I was CEO of at the time had had over 20,000 small businesses as members of their of the group. So I was able to speak after him, which was quite an honour. And I also got to sit with him and had lunch with him. And he was, as you would recall, John, he's not a very large man in stature, but certainly very striking in what he could do and what he did for Australia and what he did in politics. And when we sat down for lunch, he wanted to know about me and my family, and he wanted to talk about family. He didn't want to talk about politics. He didn't want to talk about business per se. Yes, he wanted to know more about the business I was running at that time, but he wanted to genuinely know who I was, not the business that I represented. And that struck me as something that I've taken into my way of doing things, is getting to know the person is really what you should be doing, not getting to know their business. So that was that's something that's stayed with me all my business life, and that was 25 years ago or something that occurred. So I was quite young when that occurred. The other one is the ex-CEO of Macquarie Bank. And Nicholas Moore, he was I think he was there for about 10 or 12 years as CEO. And again, through a company that I ran as CEO, in financial services in Australia, we were quite a reasonable client of the Macquarie Financial Services arm of the business. Now, you can imagine that guy, is on a plane everywhere, all over the world. And I was introduced to him as the CEO of this business. And he said, "Oh, wow, David, I know that business really well." Now, we were probably, we'd be lucky to be 0.00% of their entire business, but he knew that business well. And then the same thing, he wanted to get to know me. He already knew the business, but he wanted to get to know me. I spent an hour or so with him, just shooting the breeze, having a cup of coffee or tea. And then ever since then, I've bumped into him in different areas and different businesses, or he has been known to me through those. And he's such a personal person. He remembers the conversations and remembers being with me. So I suppose in the end, famous people are just people, aren't they? And
Yep, absolutely.
And if you're just yourself and you're with them, that's what they want. They just want to have a relationship with people.
Yeah.
So they're probably the two of. There's a few others that I won't mention, but that's probably enough.
Yeah. So it's probably a good foundation, irrespective of whether it's dealing with a customer or dealing with a staff member or dealing with at any level. People buy from people they know, like, and trust, and do business with people that they know, like, and trust. So that to me makes quite good sense. So quite interesting. So David, one of the rails that we're running in this show is leadership. And what do you think are the main facets that make a great leader, if you just had to isolate one or two?
Leadership is something that I don't think people learn very well how to be a leader. I think it's within. I think it's already within you. So I don't know if you can. I don't believe so much so that you can study to be a leader. I think you've got to have a high level of emotional intelligence. You have to be kind to people. You have to believe in people. You have to give people responsibility and make them accountable. And I think that makes a good leader. And if you've had that in your life through your parents and through your schooling and, in your own businesses, that you become a leader like that. I don't think you can learn it from a textbook. That's what I think. I think it's innate in you.
A bit like riding a bike.
Yeah, you might get a few little tips from a book to ride a bike, but basically it's generally your mother or father that teach you how to do it, and then you get on your way and you've got to work it out yourself.
Yep. David, COVID's a massive issue at the moment. Don't have to tell anybody about that, and it's the problem with a lot of people globally, of course, and probably will be an ongoing problem. You used to be on an aeroplane or glued to one many thousands of miles every year. So what's COVID done nowadays to business, and what would be your number one strategy, tip, advice, or whatnot on how a business owner can help overcome the ravages of COVID?
Yeah, it's interesting, John. You know, I'd probably spend 50% of my time pre-COVID traveling, and in the last few years that has been predominantly in Australia and New Zealand. Prior to that, it was US and Europe and so forth. But and then 50% from basically a home office, and so working with Zoom and Skype and Microsoft Teams, I was already doing that well and truly before COVID. So for the change for me was doing that 7 days a week rather than 3 to 4 days a week. And the adjustment I found was quite easy for me as long as you are scheduled, you're diligent about, putting things in your calendar, making sure that you appropriately provide time to catch up on that, do this, do that. So work your day out as if you were in your office or in your business, and schedule meetings accordingly like that. So, just being very efficient in doing that. I think that was fairly easy for me because of that time, but I know a lot of the businesses that I am involved with, that was challenging for a lot of employees. And so it was then, how do you get those employees engaged in these COVID times over Zoom and so forth. And so, yeah, that was probably very difficult for many businesses, I believe. But now it's become more efficient. You're more efficient in meetings. You're more efficient in getting things done. I think the biggest thing that any business person can do, doesn't matter if you're a small sole trader or you're a CEO of a large group, is having a life balance. And that's my biggest tip to everyone, is that, there's 3 areas for me that I think you've got to balance. And this is not, you don't equally balance them, you balance them how you like. And that's, your work life, your family life, family, friends life, and the me time. And, I think you've got to get those right. And then you can be very successful in everything you do. Your me time might be playing golf with your mates, might be going to the gym, it might be going for exercise, walk, or what have you. The family time, is dinners and just spending quality time with your family, going to their footy, going to their ballet classes, going to their concerts or what have you. And the work time, schedule that around the other 2 rather than the other way around. Work should be scheduled around those.
I remember in the old days when we were in business together, and we were in business together for many years, we used to have a golf day on a Thursday, as I recall, and we used to get 20, 30, 40, 50 business owners that were customers, and we'd all get out and have a game of golf at different courses and whatnot. And I always remember that fondly as something that it broke the week, but it developed some great relationships.
Yeah, it certainly did. And it gave you some me time as well, so you were away from the business, albeit you might be talking business with the other business owners. It was like, if you got a frustration or an issue in your business, you could be playing golf with someone who could resolve it for you, maybe, just through talking through it with them. So yeah, it's very important to balance that. And I think in the early days when you're in business, you don't do that. You just work. Where, great in hindsight and great with experience, it's just not the right thing, I don't think, to do.
David, I speak about why 50% of people in business survive despite their best efforts not to, and the other half fail. What would you be as the number 1 tip for a startup business, someone that's there by themselves? They're a one-man band, as it were, one-person band, or whatever's politically correct these days. So what would be the number 1 tip for a sole trader, do you think, in setting out in business life?
Ask yourself 10 times whether or not you actually really want to do this. Ask yourself 10 times, and then maybe ask yourself another 10 times if you really want to do this. Do you really want to go into business? And do you have the wherewithal to go into business? You might have the passion about something, but is it really what you want to do? Do you have the financial ability to do it? Is there a market for the business that you're doing? So you've got to go out and do that research to see whether or not there's a niche in the market for you. Are there others doing it that are doing it already so much better and so much bigger than you that you will struggle from the start? But I think more so, getting back to really ask yourself so many times whether or not you really want to be in business, because it's tough being in a small business, being a sole trader. Who do you go to talk to and talk through your business issues? It's very challenging.
And if we went to the other end of the scale, and if you want to sell your business at one point, what would be the thing the number one thing, strategy, idea, system, whatever, that you would make sure that's in place to maximize the sale price of your business? Whether it's a small business, whether it's you're handing over to someone else, or you end up floating.
Yeah, look, I would suggest you've got to have financials up to date. Doesn't matter what size of business you are. You've got to have historical financials that have been, your tax returns are up to date, or accountants have gone through them, or they've been audited. You've got to show that you've got strong systems and processes, and that's generally written down, as in you have a manual on how to run your business. And then that's transferable to someone. Because if you're walking out of your business and you're the main person in your business, you're generally taking most of the IP out of the business with you. But if you've got it in a manual, you've got your financials, you've got some budgeting showing that, this is what you're forecasting. You can show people that there is an addressable market for your product or your service, and you can prove that up. They're the key areas where you would maximize your value in the business, value in selling the business.
Yeah. And it's strange how things can get in the road. I remember back many, many years ago when you and I were in business and we were going through a very large acquisition, or we were being bought out. But the due diligence period ended up going on for years and years until 9/11 got stuck in the way and everything went down the tube. So there's probably a good lesson there, that if everything's in place early in the structural part of the business, your due diligence period may not be so long.
Yeah, and I think, John, if you look back to that, it's we thought that we had okay, systems and processes and what have you, but we perhaps didn't do what I've been saying you should be doing, or preaching you should be doing, is that we should have got more outside influence coming in and looking and saying, well, this is what you've got to do. So that due diligence took a lot longer because we didn't have some of those systems and processes in place. So therefore we'd either had to put them in place during that due diligence period, or they had to, find their way through the maze to find the information that they wanted to check off.
Yep. So David, leaving where we are today, what would be going forward for the vast majority of people that are going to be on this call are going to be small businesses? What would be a leaving or parting tip as to the number one thing that, if you had all your life over again, what would be the one thing, if you were starting off a little business again, it was just you, what would you advise the people to focus on primarily?
Well, you've got to be passionate about it, I suppose. On top of asking yourself if you want to be in that business time and time again, you've got to have a passion for what you're going into. Don't just go into it because you think financially it's going to be rewarding for you. I think that's kind of number 5 on the list, but it's really that you should be passionate about it, and that the business can make a difference to other people's lives. That will give you so much more satisfaction, and it will give you the rewards that you want, whether they're personal rewards or financial rewards, if you're out there helping other people. So I think they're probably the two: be passionate about it, and that you're helping others.
So, David, what's the next on your horizon? Is there anything exciting that you can share with anybody? What's with things that are going on at the moment?
Yeah, look, I've got some opportunities to get more involved in financial services, which I've been involved in probably for the last 15 years. So I'm just looking at those. I really can't mention the names of those businesses, but also I'm very much involved, especially with EnviroSuite, with the environment. So I've got a couple of businesses that I'm looking at getting involved with that have an environmental edge to them, and technology and environmental. So that's kind of, I suppose, my passion now.
Cool. So it's been my pleasure to have you on the show today, David, and I hope that some of the people that get some benefit from the tips and experience, and this is what this show is all about, is how to share some of the experiences so that hopefully people coming through don't make the mistakes that we all did coming through. Not that you ever get anywhere without making mistakes. I always say that show me someone that never makes a mistake, show me someone I never want to work with, show me someone who continues to make the same mistake, show me someone I never want to work with. Thank you very much for your contribution today, David. It's been an absolute pleasure, and wish you well and your family. And thanks very much for joining us and taking time out of your day to help some other people.
Yeah, no, thanks to you, John, and I hope the conference is successful and everyone gets. I hope they've got a few. I've been able to provide 1 or 2 tips for people. So thanks.
David Johnson, thanks very much.
Thank you.